delighted to have Paul with us here today as part of the AFAC Knowledge Series, but also because we've established what we're calling the SARAC program, which is our contribution to researching this area, looking at safe and renewable alternate energies and technologies, and very much links in with Paul's area of research and work, and so we're delighted to be able to have Paul here, who's also a partner with us with the SARAC program. So Paul, welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Good day! Now, come on, right? I never had you Australians down as shy. Let's see if you wake up by the end of this morning's presentation. Yesterday I would have said, say 3 weeks ago, that it rained. But having been in Darwin, I think it was just slightly moist. So yes, for some mysterious reason, AFAC asked me to talk a bit about me first. So I apologise. Being an academic, of course, I didn't want to talk about myself, but I'll do it anyway. So this is the contents of the presentation. A bit about me, then an introduction to lithium-ion batteries. Now the first 3 bits are going to occur before lunch. Okay? The last bit, policy, risk assessment and incident management, will also include yet another pontification, this time about second-hand electric vehicle batteries. But all of that will only take about half an hour, so we should be able to launch into the question session a bit earlier. Key and emerging issues, I hope you will agree, will arise throughout the presentation. I should say a great big thanks to Motorola, to AFAC, and particularly to Greg for making this the most wonderful adventure of my entire life. Right? In these last 2.5 weeks, I have travelled probably 10 times more air miles than I have travelled in my entire life, and I never thought I'd do that. So, 1971 grammar school, year 1, isn't he cute? It's been downhill ever since then, particularly looks-wise. But I attended my first chemistry lesson, and you should see a kind of theme arising here. And my eyes were opened wide. I spent the next 5 years of my life, all of my pocket money, on weed killer and sugar, sodium chlorate and sugar, because I wanted to make things, I would say bombs, but there's police in the audience, so I better not. I wanted to make things go bang, and I wanted to make rockets, because sodium chlorate, when you ignite it, burns. Sadly, and this presages the rest of my professional career, I was too thick to realise that it burns too slowly to make rocket fuel. But there you go. So, I come from the rough end of a rough town called South Shields, and that's going to be recorded, so I could face some repercussions. But by some fantastic chance, I managed to get to Oxford to do my first degree. Did my PhD at the Royal Institution and Imperial College. Then I did actually a research associate job for 4 years back at Oxford before doing what all Geordies do, heading for home, an lectureship at Newcastle University, and that's my career since. But the single most important thing that I am proud of is that last one. About 18 months ago, the NF... Okay, now thermal runaway need not result in fire. Lesson number 1. It doesn't mean fire. Thermal runaway is that process inside the cell generating the gases and the heat. When the cell bursts, you don't need fire. You may have it, or you may not. If it doesn't ignite immediately, the vapour cloud, which is toxic and flammable, is continually produced. If then ignition takes place, you've got the vapour cloud explosion. If there's immediate ignition, you get the rocket-like flames. If you put the fire out without cooling the cells and stopping thermal propagation, and that is the key, then you will continue to get the vapour cloud and you risk the hazard flipping from fire to explosion. Cue the fire extinguisher tests. So we did these at Durham and Darlington Fire and Rescue Service. Great bunch of guys and girls who are really, really helpful. Really helpful. Now, there's only a few sites in the UK where you can do these large-scale battery ignition tests, partly because of worries over the environment. So Durham and Darlington have got a full scrubbing system for the gases that came off, and they didn't charge us for the facilities because we were testing fire extinguishers. Okay? Now, my bugbear then and still now is domestic battery energy storage systems. So we had 5 of our modules, 8 cells per module again. We overcharged 2 cells in the second bottom module. We expected that module and the module beneath to go into thermal runaway, and we wanted to see whether the fire suppression systems would stop thermal propagation to the top 3 modules. And this kind of represents the kind of battery energy storage system you might see in the UK with a solar array on the roof. Round about 10 kilowatt hours roughly. We also had thermocouples. I'm not going to go into the data there, but we left the fire to develop for a minute. We didn't want to leave it for a whole 5 minutes to mimic the arrival time of the fire and rescue services. And then we deployed the suppressant, and the fire officer was in full breathing apparatus, yeah, full PPE, etc. Now we should note the Fire Association, which is the trade organisation for small producers, were really great. They gave us £10,000 to fund these studies, but as you might guess, they're quite expensive, so we could only do 1 5-module test per suppressant. And really, that's not good science. You need to do at least 3 to check reproducibility. But we were really looking for an indication. We tried liquid nitrogen. I'm not going to bother showing you that because it was utterly useless. We only tried it on 1 module and it just vaporized before it reached the module. We tried cold cut cobra and F500, and we allowed the fire to burn for 1 minute before we deployed the fire suppressant. So this is the cold cut cobra. It's a water lance with an abrasive in it, and the operator knew precisely where to position it to cut through the actual module that was in thermal runaway. So he knew what to do, and he could clean through both sides of the case and the module. So that's the vapor cloud. We're overcharging 2 cells, and then off it goes. So in he comes, a minute later. Notice the flames are still there. Took 90 seconds to extinguish the flames, okay? It then produced a lot of gas, vapor cloud, but it would be mixed with steam, and there was lots of damp water vapor. So the gas levels would be, I reckon, below the lower explosion limit. But the 2 modules that went up did produce a lot of vapor cloud. But it did stop propagation to the top 3 modules. But my concern is, first of all, how long it took, despite cutting through the actual module that was on fire, to extinguish the flames. I don't like anybody being close to a high-energy battery energy storage system of any description pressed right up against it. And also, that was a small container, you know, that big, and you knew where to position the lance. What about a battery pack? That big. Right? What if the cells in thermal runaway are there, and you cut here? The undamaged cells will generate hydrogen and oxygen, and that will feed the flames. And that's possibly why batteries burn underwater. And don't forget, Tesla stated absolutely categorically, with our electric vehicles, do not put them into containers of water, because the undamaged cells will cause problems. So we then tested F500, and I think there's some representatives in the room, and I will confess, very unscientifically and very rudely, I refer to this as 3% washing up liquid in water. Okay? I prejudged, and as always, when you prejudge, you look a right wally. So this is F500. It's 3%, I think, of a surfactant in water. It's meant, first of all, to lower the surface tension to allow the water to get into nooks and crannies. And then they also say it can encapsulate the gases. Sorry guys, I remain sceptical about that bit. But what I can't deny is the result. So, and I'll jump in a second. That's it going off, right? When the guy walked in, the fire officer with the fire extinguisher, he banged it against the side of the container. And I was watching it on the monitor and I jumped out of my skin. So here he comes. That's it, sorry, going up again. And then in he comes. There. And I thought he'd been blown to smithereens. 7 seconds to take out the fire. It did generate a lot of vapour from the 2 modules, but it did stop propagation to the other 3 modules. It knocked down the fire in 7 seconds. Now we do know that water mist, and this was a water mist delivery system, is very good at cooling. Okay? And there is increasing interest in water mist. I think that, at least at the present time, to my knowledge, and I am very happy to be proven wrong, that it is not yet clear whether the surfactant has an added benefit. And it's down to independent testing to do this, right? Not the producers. It's down to the producers to get independent tests. So there it goes again, 7 seconds.